This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
The Jack Welch Management Institute at Strayer University helps you go from, I know the way, to I've arrived with our top 10 ranked online MBA. Gain skills you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Get ready to go from make it happen to made it happen and keep striving. Visit strayer.edu/Jack Welch MBA to learn more. Strayer University is certified to operate in Virginia by Chev and has many campuses, including at 2121 15th Street North in Arlington, Virginia.
This episode is brought to you by Polestar. There's only one true way to experience the all-electric luxury SUV Polestar 3, and that's to take a test drive. It can go from 0 to 60 in as little as 4.8 seconds with the dynamic handling of a sports car. But to truly understand how it commands the road, you need to be behind the wheel. Up to 350 miles of range, the 3D surround sound system by Bowers & Wilkins. It's all something you have to experience to believe. So book your test drive for Polestar 3 today at polestar.com.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
If you went on a road trip and you didn't stop for a Big Mac or drop a crispy fry between the car seats or use your McDonald's bag as a placemat, then that wasn't a road trip. It was just a really long drive. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's.
Welcome to the HCI family of podcasts. We're your source for personal, professional, and organizational growth and development. We share our own original research, explore industry trends, and interview executives and thought leaders from across the globe. Join us for practitioner-oriented content around all things leadership, HR, talent management, organizational development, and change management. Maximize your personal and organizational potential with the HCI family of podcasts. Mike Schiller, welcome to the conversation today.
Thanks, John. Happy to be here.
It is a real pleasure to be with you. You're joining us from Dallas, Texas. I'm south of Salt Lake City in Utah. And today we're going to be talking about your new book, High Impact at Low Decibels, How Anxiety-Filled Introverts and Others Can Thrive in the Workplace. As we were talking in the pre-interview, just getting to know each other a little bit, I mentioned how much I just love the title of your book. I think it's super fun. It's always fascinating to me how people choose titles. This one's a super fun one. And I really like how you're focusing in on introverts. Obviously, your book's for anybody. It can apply to anybody, but particularly, for introverts, those who are a little bit more that direction on the spectrum of, where they get their energy, draw their energy from, or where they expend their energy from, right? I think sometimes we don't focus so much on those folks. And I tend to be on that side, and it is a spectrum. It's not either or. But, I think a lot of us, a good portion of the population, tend to be more that direction. And so it's really important to recognize as leaders what makes our people tick and what drives them and how they respond to different stimuli and all of that, right? So this is what we're going to be discussing and exploring together today. As we get started, I wanted to share Mike's bio with everybody. Mike Schiller has more than 30 years of experience at Fortune 500 companies, both as a technical expert and as an executive level leader, and most recently was Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at Texas Instruments. He is currently President of Onward Consulting, specializing in information security and audit consulting. Schiller is a graduate of Texas A&M University and has spent more than 20 years working in the IT audit and information security fields. He is an anxiety-filled introvert and enjoys helping others with similar challenges succeed. And you can go to his website to find more information. He'll tell you more about that later on in the episode. All right, Mike, great again to be with you. I always like to ask authors, why this book? Why now? Like, what was the impetus for writing this book?
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hey business owners, we know you know the importance of maximizing every dollar. With the Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business American Express card, you can make your expenses work just as hard as you. From afternoon coffee runs to stocking office supplies and even team dinners, you can earn miles on all your business expenses. Plus, you can earn 110,000 bonus miles for a limited time through July 16th. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve Business Card. If you travel, you know. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply. Offer ends 7/16/25.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Yeah, so you gave my background, more than 30 years in the corporate world and make it into executive leadership. And I think, for me, this book came about as I was getting near retirement from Texas Instruments. I was on an airplane flying to India, and I was just reflecting. You have a lot of time to reflect when you're on 20+ hour journeys, right? And
yeah.
So I was, for some reason, instead of just watching movies, I was in a contemplative mood, and I was thinking, well, I've got a lot more time behind me in my career than ahead of me. And what are some things that might have been helpful for me to know when I started that maybe I could share with some other folks? And I centered on the fact that I don't think I fit the classic, what we consider to be the classic success profile for executive leaders, because I'm an extreme introvert. I think I'm like 93, 94% on Myers-Briggs introvert, which means that doesn't mean I can't interact socially effectively. It just means I get my energy from being alone. And again, to an extreme. And I'm just a high anxiety person, social anxiety and imposter syndrome and inferiority complexes, all that kind of stuff. And so I got to thinking, well, maybe one of the more interesting things that I experienced was that, none of those things held me back. They, in a weird way, I think they led to my success because I was self-aware enough to figure out ways to mitigate those things to keep them from being derailers. And then really they got turned into strengths. And so I started developing kind of a talk to give to new employees at my company. So I did that, and it was well received. And then I delivered it once I retired to some other external audiences, and the feedback was really good. That was very helpful in kind of an underserved topic. And so I decided, well, let me see if I can turn it into a book.
Well, yeah, I do think it's an underserved topic. And there's a huge portion of the population generally and the workforce that resonates with it, right? Like that totally falls into that category. And we usually only talk, when we talk about leadership, for example, we tend to talk about the charismatic leader. We use that up, we hold that up as kind of the caricature or the model of what it means to be a good leader. And it's just not true. Like certainly a charismatic leader can be an effective leader, but there's all different shapes and sizes. There's all different types. and anyone who studies leadership knows this, and anyone who's
Yep.
experienced leadership, if you've experienced leadership in different organizations, you know that there's all different types of effective
Right.
leaders in different types of teams, and it depends on the context, it depends on the situation,
Yeah.
and so absolutely you can be an introvert and a very effective leader.
Right.
You could be an introvert and a very ineffective leader. You could be a charismatic person and a very effective leader, or a very ineffective leader. It really has less to do with what your actual, personality style or introvert extrovert kind of dynamic is. It has more to
Yeah.
do with, like you said, are you self-aware? Do you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to leverage them? Do you know how to surround yourself with people who can complement
Right.
your strengths and weaknesses, to help you fill out your team
Yeah.
and fill the gaps or whatever? Like, that's what matters, right?
Yep. Yeah. No, I think that was all really well said. And I think we have a risk, especially those of us who don't fit what we think of as the classic profile of a successful person, and not just leaders, but a successful person.
Yeah.
We can put these artificial limits on ourselves, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Because when I think of, we were talking about leadership. When I think of a leader, I think about, initially what comes to mind is like Captain Kirk or Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
These people are just so, confident and bold and decisive, and they're so naturally gifted with people. And when I think of myself, I think maybe I'm closer to like Neville Longbottom, right? Or Eeyore or somebody.
But Neville was super important, and he accomplished a lot.
Right. That's right. Absolutely. And Eeyore, he did some good things too, I suppose. You can put these artificial limits on yourself and think, well, I can't be as successful as that person because they don't have to deal with the things I do. They've never dealt with imposter syndrome or whatever. But one of the first steps is just realizing it's not true. That's an illusion, because everybody has their own hangups. Maybe there's a very small percentage of the population who has no internal anxieties, no internal struggles, but they're pretty small. The rest of us, we all do. It's about being aware of them, mitigating them to the point that they're not derailers, and then figuring out how those things can be a strength.
The segment of the population that doesn't have those things are narcissists and sociopaths. So we don't need to be those. Like, everyone else does. Like,
That's
everyone
right.
does.
That's right.
Right? It's part of the human condition. So you can just accept that and recognize it's part of what everyone deals with. And we all have to wrestle with that. And we all sometimes feel imposter syndrome. We all feel insecure. We all feel like we're wading through in the dark, trying to figure things out. That's life. That's the way it is. And even those charismatic people, who seem so confident and walk through life with great bravado, guess what? They're also insecure. They're also, that's partly why they have so much bravado, is because they're insecure.
Yeah. Compensating. Right.
Yeah, they're compensating.
Yeah.
So it's really important to just recognize that. And guess what? We are all just trying to do the best we can.
That's right. And again, the key is, how do we mitigate that? How do we keep that from derailing us? And do you mind if I just dive in a little bit on that imposter syndrome? So one of the things I used as far as structuring this topic in the book is this kind of 3-step thing of, wish versus reality, mitigation, and turning it into a strength. And so for each of these topics, you can kind of say, what do I wish was the case? And then what's the reality? And so, for example, I was with somebody with more than 30 years of experience and a pretty decent resume. My wish was to be able to walk into any situation and just be confident I'm going to be able to contribute and do a great job in whatever the situation is. But the reality was the imposter syndrome, and I think everyone knows what imposter syndrome is. But that's the feeling that you're an imposter and you're going to be discovered as a fraud at any moment. Right? It's sort of, you're not experiencing internally the success that you're actually objectively experiencing externally. So while I had this wish, the reality was I had very, very low self-confidence, and a lot of people are like that. And the problem with that is that can lead to a number of negative things. For example, the fear of making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't take risks. and that can really limit your career. Or just that low self-confidence can be very limiting in your career. It can also lead to very poor response to feedback, right? We all need feedback to be successful, to continuously improve, but that imposter syndrome can lead to you just spiraling into self-negativity, or sometimes being overly defensive when you hear feedback because you don't want to have made another mistake. So there's all kinds of things that could be derailers, and that's the reality, despite what my wish is. So you have to figure out, how do you mitigate it? And there are a number of steps. Obviously, we can't go into all of them, but a couple of examples. First and foremost is just an awareness that imposter syndrome, that's your brain misbehaving. It's just awareness is the first step. It's your brain misbehaving. It's trying to convince you of something that's not true. Because you can objectively look back and see your successes, and we tend to dismiss those. But you have to step back and say, what would I think if I saw someone else with this resume, right? And if you're objective, you're probably going to say, okay, I would maybe have a positive impression of this person. So the awareness is important, but obviously then you have to take steps. For a lot of us, it may sound trite, but the concept of self-talk, that is huge. And that is something you can change. For me, the most common words out of my mouth are probably things like, I hate myself. I'm so stupid. I'm an idiot. Those are the most natural things that flow out of my mouth. And also, my brain is just constantly playing this like greatest hits playlist of every mistake I ever made in my life, just constantly bombarding me with all these mistakes. And then you end up getting all caught up in, oh, why did I do that? Oh, what an idiot I was. That stuff does not put you in the right frame of mind to be successful. So you have to take steps to stop it. And those words that come out of, I'm so stupid, I hate myself, you can stop those words from coming out. That is a choice you can make, that those don't come out. The bombardment in your head of, here's all the mistakes that I've made, that's harder because controlling the brain is tougher. But I use the term changing the channel. When I'm being bombarded by these negative thoughts of things I've done, it's an awareness of, oh, this is not healthy. I'm going to change the channel. And it would be great to change the channel to some memory of some huge success I had, but you can't always come up with that in the moment. But you can change the channel to something that is at least neutral. Oh, hey, let me think about who I hope wins this season of Great British Baking Championship. Let me make a list of the last 10 World Series winners. You can just change the channel in your brain. I'm not going to think about that. I actually knock on my leg as like a physical mechanism. Like, okay, I am changing.
I was going to ask about that. Like, because it's one thing to say I need to change the channel to be kind of mentally aware of that.
Right.
But that can be hard to do if you're in the rumination cycle. So you have like a physical mechanism of tapping on your leg. Are there other things that you would recommend, or is that just for everyone to kind of figure out for themselves?
Yeah. For me, it is how the physical can impact what's going on in your brain. And so whatever that mechanism is, actually the most effective thing for me is the knock on my head, because that's where the thought is. It's like, okay, we're changing the channel here. But if I'm in the middle of a meeting, that looks weird. If I start knocking on my head, but I can like tap on my leg, and that can change the channel. And so there are those mitigation techniques, and there's others we could talk about, but I know we don't want to spend the whole time on one topic. But ways you receive feedback and ways you receive compliments. Again, multiple techniques of how do we mitigate this imposter syndrome. But then how does that become a strength? Well, once you've mitigated that tendency towards what you might call an inferiority complex, once you've mitigated that so that it's not derailing you and not created this complete lack of self-confidence, it can lead to a very healthy humility, which can be extremely valuable. And if we've been talking about leaders, very valuable for leaders.
Yeah.
As somebody who was a naturally low confidence person, the good thing was, once I again mitigated that from derailing me, I was never the leader who thought he was the smartest guy in the room and thought all ideas had to flow from him. In fact, I was the opposite. I wanted to hear everybody else's thoughts and opinions, so that
and that's terrible. Like, we all have seen those types of leaders who are so arrogant.
Yes,
they will not take input, or they kind of pretend to take input, but they've really already made the decision. That's almost even worse.
Yep.
And that's so toxic. It's so damaging. And so
Exactly.
having the intellectual humility is so important, but sometimes it's a hard balance because on the one hand, are you lacking
Yep.
confidence? On the other hand, are you
Yep.
just having like intellectual humility and curiosity and are open to
Right.
input, right?
Yeah. I to put it in Star Trek terms, which is the best terms possible, I would say. It's kind of the Captain Kirk versus Captain Picard model.
Mm,
Captain Kirk was he always had a decision. He knew exactly what to do, and he just made all these split-second decisions. Captain Picard, he always took all his staff into his ready room and asked for everyone's opinion and then tried
yeah.
to reach consensus and then made a decision. You can make an argument that Kirk was made for more exciting TV. I'd say Picard probably is more the style that I think is effective. But to your point, you still have to be balanced, right? As a leader, you're not going to be able to make every decision by consensus. And not every decision is appropriate to get input from everybody, right? There could be very
Yeah.
sensitive topics, HR decisions, but where appropriate, I find the best, at least for me, the best process is to get input from the people who are going to be most closely impacted or involved with the decision so that you can make a more informed decision. But ultimately, you have to remember as a leader, it's up to you. You have to make the final call. You have to realize when you've gotten to the point of analysis paralysis, right? But getting that input and legitimately considering everybody's input helps you not only reach a stronger, more informed decision, but you're going to have better buy-in from the team. And
Exactly.
and going back to one of the things you said about the leader who takes input but ignores it, obviously, again, I think a strength if you're one of these people that's um, more lower confidence naturally, you're not going to take that approach. But one of the things that I think is important is if you're the leader in the room, you probably should give your opinion later in the discussion, right? Because
Hmm.
if you give it right away, you've already kind of blown it, right? Because a lot of people are going to feel like, okay, well, I don't want to disagree with the boss. So, that's just it. It's just a good trait, as far, in my opinion, as far as being able to sincerely get that input and consider it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So imposter syndrome, that's one of the important things that you highlight in your book. What are maybe one or two other aspects that you spend some time focusing on?
Well, we talked about being an introvert,
Mhm.
and a lot of times that goes hand in hand with social anxiety.
Yes.
And if I go back to that wish versus reality thing, you know, one of the ways, I could put it is, I want to have strong relationships with people. I know that that is critical to my success and also my personal happiness, right? It's not only good for business success, it's good for us personally. But even if you don't personally want relationships, you have to realize they're going to be important to your success. None of us are successful on our own.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that would be the wish is, okay, I want to have strong relationships, but the reality is you're an extreme introvert. And so it exhausts you to be around people. It doesn't mean you don't like them or don't enjoy their company. It's just very draining if you're an extreme introvert like me. And also, if you have social anxiety like me, it can just be uh, it can just be super stressful. It could be a almost sometimes a panic-inducing event, right? So you're
Hmm.
trying to avoid it. Someone asked me once, like, "Hey, what are some of the most stressful things that happen in your career?" And I could easily talk about, well, going to present to the board or trying to lead the organization through a crisis. But if I'm being honest, probably right up there at the top would be I'm sitting at my desk and somebody comes by and says, "Hey, a group of us are going to lunch. Do you want to join us?" That probably causes just as much stress because you just have this whole panic, like, "Oh, I'm not ready for that kind of social interaction. I thought I was going to have some time to myself." So, being an extreme introvert who panics at social interactions is not going to naturally get you towards having those strong relationships unless you do something to mitigate it. I had to realize as a introverted leader, I wasn't just going to naturally go out and socialize. I wasn't going to naturally go do management by walking around and touch base with the
Hmm.
team. But from a mitigation standpoint, I thought through the fact that, well, I'm very organized. I'm very task oriented. I have this high degree of responsibility. If I say I'm going to do something, even if I just make a commitment to myself, I'm going to do it. So the connection I made was I can turn relationship building into a task. So I can make a list of, here are all the people that are really important for me to have strong relationships with to do this job well. And it could be peers, my team that's reporting to me, my boss, my key stakeholders, but just make a list and then develop a process for each one of, what is my process for maintaining a strong relationship with this person. So it could be regular one-on-ones. It can be, regular lunches. It can be roundtables with segments of the team. It can be scheduling time for management by walking around on your calendar. You realizing you're not going to do it spontaneously, schedule it. Again, if you're a task-oriented, structured person, then it's like, oh, it's time for my management by walking around. I know for the next hour or 30 minutes or whatever, I'm going to be just walking around, touching base with people. But now, since it's on my list of things to do, I'm going to go do it. So you can turn the relationship building into a task, and that helps you mitigate your kind of desire to maximize alone time. And if you're somebody who, another mitigation thing is if you're somebody who, again, wants to maybe reduce, those interactions because they're stressful or exhausting, you might have a tendency to, even when you do meet with people, to just try to get down to business. Like, let's knock this out. Let's go through the agenda and let's be done, because I want to go back to being alone. But the problem is, if you're just call business all the time, you're not going to form those authentic relationships, and it's not going to be as fulfilling and enjoyable for you. Part of it is also just realizing, even if you do have social anxiety, boy, relationships and real authentic friendships, they make such a difference in your life. So how do you mitigate that? Well, part of it, again, if you're a structured person, just have it in your head. You're not going to put it on paper. Have it in your head that part of the agenda for every discussion is the first few minutes you talk about anything but work. And I kind of had a clock in my wall I could see, and I made sure we didn't start talking about the topic of the meeting. If it was like let's say it's a one-on-one, first 5 minutes, maximum 10 minutes, we're just going to talk about personal stuff, and then we move on. So if you have that in your head and that's part of your structure, then you'll relax and you'll be like, okay, we're going to spend a little bit of time having some personal connections. So you do those things. And again, how does that turn into a strength? Well, again, it's interesting. You actually end up becoming somebody who's very strong at relationships because you have very intentionally invested it. And it's not that these relationships are phony because you're having to make them into tasks. It's the opposite. They're so important to you that you're mitigating your default nature by making sure you are taking time to invest in them. And you end up this can turn into a strength of yours that, wow, this is somebody who's really good at relationships. They take time, they invest in them, they get to know people personally. And so you've gone from, I'm an extreme introvert with social anxiety, to one of my strengths is building relationships.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome advice. Mike, this has just been a fantastic conversation. I note the time. I need to let you go and get on with your busy day. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to give you a chance to share with the audience how they can connect with you, find out more about your work, where they can find your book, and then give us the final word on the topic for today.
Yeah. So as far as finding the book, easiest thing is Amazon. You can find the 3 editions. You've got the old-fashioned print edition. There's an ebook, and there is an audiobook. And I actually narrated the audiobook. So if you want to hear me talk in your ear for 4 hours, you can get the audiobook and hear it that way. And as far as connecting with me, the easiest thing is you can find me on LinkedIn. And as far as final words on the topic, I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning, and we had a good discussion about it. Everybody, has their own inner challenges, right? So don't put artificial limits on yourself because you think, well, I'm an extreme introvert. I have social anxiety. I have a fear of public speaking. I have an issue with change. Whatever the thing might be, just be aware of it, mitigate it to the point where it's not a derailer, and then figure out how that could be a strength for you.
Yeah, I love it. Mike, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I encourage the audience to reach out, to get connected, find out more about what Mike can do for you. Check out the book. And as always, I hope everyone can stay healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the podcast. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and please join us again soon.